The pen trembled in Isabella Whitmore's hand as Christmas music swelled around her, laughter rising like glittering champagne bubbles beneath the crystal chandeliers. Snow drifted gently beyond the tall glass windows of the Grand Aurora Ballroom, but inside, warmth and celebration wrapped around every guest except her. With tears sliding silently down her cheeks, she signed her name on the divorce papers resting against the polished mahogany table near the towering Christmas tree. No one noticed. No one knew. And certainly no one in that room realized that the quiet woman in the emerald silk dress, the one being casually abandoned by her husband at their own company's holiday gala, was the secret majority owner of the very empire they were celebrating. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and hidden strength, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them most. Isabella had built her life on silence. Not weakness, not ignorance, silence. She had grown up as the only daughter of Alexander Whitmore, a tech visionary whose innovations transformed digital security across the world. From childhood, she learned that wealth was safest when hidden, that influence was strongest when quiet. Her father had taught her to study people before speaking, to observe before reacting. When he passed away unexpectedly 5 years earlier, he left behind not just billions in assets but also a controlling share in Whitmore Technologies, placed discreetly under Isabella's name through an irrevocable trust. But Isabella never flaunted it. When she met Daniel Harrington, he was charismatic, ambitious, and full of dazzling promises. He spoke of building something meaningful, of creating jobs, of changing lives. She believed in him. More than that, she believed in love uncomplicated by money. So she never told him the truth. Instead, she invested anonymously through the board, ensuring Daniel's startup received the funding it needed to grow into the very corporation hosting this glittering Christmas celebration tonight. In the early years, they were inseparable. They shared late-night takeout in their tiny apartment, sketched business ideas on napkins, dreamed about future children who would run through gardens they did not yet own. Isabella worked quietly behind the scenes, advising the board under a confidential structure, solving crises before Daniel even knew they existed. When the company nearly collapsed during a legal dispute, it was her strategic intervention that stabilized investor confidence. But publicly, Daniel took the applause. Success changed him slowly, then all at once. The private dinners turned into networking galas. The whispered gratitude turned into public speeches where her name was forgotten. He began to speak of the company as his alone, of sacrifices he had made alone. Isabella told herself it was temporary, that pressure did strange things to people. She ignored the way he introduced her as, just my wife, to potential partners. She endured the subtle humiliation of being excluded from strategy meetings for a company she technically owned. Then came the rumors. A young marketing executive named Victoria Langston began appearing at Daniel's side in photographs, always laughing at his jokes, always standing a little too close. Isabella never confronted him. Instead, she watched. She observed late-night messages glowing on his phone screen. She felt the distance in his touch. When Daniel asked for a divorce 2 weeks before Christmas, he framed it as liberation. He said they had grown apart. He said he needed someone who understood his world now. He promised a fair settlement. Isabella listened without interrupting. She nodded. She did not mention that she understood his world better than anyone. The Christmas party had been scheduled months in advance, and Daniel insisted they attend together to avoid gossip. So she stood beside him beneath golden lights while executives toasted record profits. She smiled for photographs knowing that within her clutch purse rested the legal documents dissolving their marriage. When he finally stepped aside to join Victoria near the dance floor, Isabella walked to the quiet corner table and signed. Tears fell not because she was losing wealth or status, but because she was mourning a dream. She had loved him before the fame, before the ego. She had loved the man who once held her hands and promised that no success would matter without her beside him. As the ink dried, something inside her shifted. The grief did not disappear, but it transformed. It became clarity. Over the next week, Isabella requested a private meeting with the board of directors. For the first time, she stepped into the executive conference room not as a silent shareholder but as Isabella Whitmore, controlling majority owner. The reaction was immediate shock. Several members had suspected, but none had known the full extent of her authority. She did not seek revenge. She sought accountability. An internal audit revealed reckless spending under Daniel's recent leadership, vanity acquisitions, inflated marketing contracts tied to Victoria's relatives, strategic risks masked by short-term profit spikes. Isabella listened to the data calmly. She felt the ache of betrayal, but she remained composed. The board voted unanimously to appoint her interim CEO while a leadership review was conducted. When Daniel was informed, he believed it was a misunderstanding. When he arrived at headquarters demanding explanation, he was met not by security but by Isabella herself in the executive office overlooking the skyline. She did not shout. She did not cry. She simply presented the documents verifying her ownership. The realization in his eyes was not anger, it was disbelief. He had never truly seen her. The news broke days later. Whitmore Technologies announces leadership transition, founder Daniel Harrington steps down amid restructuring. Media outlets speculated about internal disagreements but never uncovered the full personal story. Isabella did not correct them. Taking the helm was not easy. Investors were wary. Employees were uncertain. Isabella spent long nights reviewing operations, meeting department heads, and restructuring ethical guidelines. She reinstated community scholarship programs Daniel had cut. She created mentorship initiatives for young female engineers. She established transparency protocols to prevent future financial misuse. Slowly, morale improved. Profit stabilized. The company's reputation strengthened. But the most significant transformation was internal. Isabella began volunteering anonymously at a women's legal aid foundation, funding resources for those navigating difficult divorces without financial security. She understood the vulnerability of signing papers that close a chapter of life. She wanted others to feel less alone in that moment. One snowy evening the following Christmas, she attended a modest holiday gathering at the foundation's community center instead of a ballroom. Children decorated a small tree with handmade ornaments. Laughter filled the room in a way that felt honest, unpolished. Isabella felt peace settle in her chest for the first time in years. She realized that losing Daniel had not diminished her, it had revealed her. The tears she shed at that grand party were not tears of defeat but of awakening. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to engage with this video, like it, share it, and let us know your thoughts. Your interaction helps keep meaningful stories alive. And before we reach the end, please comment the word, strength, if you believe resilience can bloom even in heartbreak. Isabella eventually stepped permanently into the role of CEO, not to prove a point but to fulfill a responsibility she had long carried silently. Under her leadership, Whitmore Technologies expanded globally while maintaining ethical standards that became industry benchmarks. She never publicly spoke about the divorce. She did not need to. Her life spoke for her. Years later, when asked at a leadership summit what the hardest decision of her life had been, she answered simply that it was choosing self-respect over comfort. She explained that sometimes love blinds us not to others' flaws but to our own value. The audience rose in standing ovation, unaware that the most transformative moment of her life had occurred not in a boardroom but at a Christmas party, pen shaking, heartbreaking, snow falling outside. She signed those papers thinking she was losing everything. In truth, she was signing her way back to herself.